My name is Emily Carter, and I'm 23 years old. This is my real story, a story I never imagined I'd be sharing. But maybe it's time the truth came out. What happened to me changed the way I see the world. Trust people and live every moment. There was a time when everything seemed perfect, until I found myself trapped between lies, love, and betrayal. It all began one cold December evening, when a stranger entered my life. Or so I thought. This story is emotional, raw, and deeply personal. If you're watching this, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to hear a story of strength, survival, and dark realities. This story is written and edited by Dark Lifeside Diaries. It was the kind of winter night that made silence louder, the kind where even the wind feels like it's carrying secrets. I remember the snowflakes tapping gently against my apartment window, like quiet reminders of the world outside. I had just finished my finals, my laptop screen still glowing with the last assignment I had submitted for the semester. I felt free, excited, hopeful. Even I was alone in my apartment in Chicago, sipping peppermint tea, watching the fairy lights blink along my bookshelf. That's when I received the first message. It was anonymous, no profile picture, no name, just one sentence. Do you really know who you are? At first, I thought it was spam or one of those weird online trolls, but something about it unsettled me. I tried to ignore it, went back to scrolling through social media, and laughed at silly reels my friends had tagged me in. But 5 minutes later, another message appeared. You were never meant to find out, but you're close now. That was when my heart skipped a beat. I locked my phone and stared at my reflection in the window, suddenly feeling like I wasn't alone. I had always believed I knew who I was. Emily Carter, a regular girl studying psychology, living on her own, working part-time at a bookstore downtown. But this message hinted at something else, something I couldn't explain. That night I barely slept. I kept the lights on and checked the locks 3 times. The next day, I told my best friend Sarah about it, hoping she'd laugh it off and ease my nerves. But she didn't laugh. Instead, she looked uncomfortable and asked if I had spoken to my mother recently. I hadn't. My mom and I weren't on the best terms. We'd barely spoken since I moved out. Maybe you should ask her, Sarah said quietly. There's something you should know. The way she said it made my stomach twist. I went home the evening and called my mom. After a long silence on the other end, she finally said, it's time I told you the truth. What followed was a confession that shattered everything I believed. I wasn't born in Chicago. I wasn't even supposed to be here. My real name wasn't Emily Carter. She had changed it. When I was 5, we had moved here under a new identity, hiding from someone dangerous. She wouldn't tell me who, just that he was gone now, or at least she hoped he was. My hands were shaking as she spoke. I felt my whole world tilt and crash. Every childhood memory, every photo in our albums are lie. Why now? I whispered. Why tell me now? She said it was because she had received a letter to the same handwriting. Someone was watching us again, someone new. And then she said something that chill led my blood. Don't trust Sarah. She's not who you think she is. I hung up, dazed and sad, in the dark for hours. Sarah had been my best friend since high school. She knew everything about me. Could she really be part of this? I wanted to believe it was paranoia, but then I remembered something strange. The way Sarah had asked about my mom, the discomfort in her eyes, the way she changed the subject. When I pressed her, I decided I needed answers. I needed to find out who I really was, who we were hiding from, and what Sarah knew. So I started digging old documents, family photos, anything I could find. That's when I came across a storage box my mom had left in the attic. Inside was an old cassette tape labeled 1999, do not play. Of course I played it. What I heard was a man's voice, calm, chilling. She will never remember what happened that night. If she does, everything falls apart. I paused the tape. That voice, it felt familiar in a way I couldn't explain. And then it hit me. I had heard that voice in my dreams for years, whispering things I couldn't remember. Upon waking, it wasn't just a bad dream, it was a memory. That night I didn't sleep again. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, realizing my life had been nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion, and someone somewhere was determined to unravel it. The next morning, Sarah texted me. We need to talk. I have something to tell you. I stared at the screen, torn between fear and the desperate need to know. Did I reply? Did I meet her? Or did I run? I didn't reply to Sarah's message right away. I just stared at it, my mind spiraling into questions and doubts. The girl who had shared my secrets, late night coffee runs, heart breaks, college stress, Netflix binges. Could she really be part of something darker? I felt betrayed just thinking about it, and yet there was this gnawing fear that maybe I needed to hear what she had to say. I decided to meet her. We met at the small corner cafe we used to love, the one with the mismatched chairs and the old jazz music playing softly in the background. Sarah was already there when I arrived, sitting in the back with her hood up and her face pale. She looked like she hadn't slept either. As I sat down, her eyes met mine, filled with something between fear and regret. Before you say anything, she whispered, I need you to know I didn't want to lie to you, but I had no choice. I felt my throat tighten. What are you talking about? I asked. She took a deep breath and leaned closer, lowering her voice. Your real name isn't Emily, it's Lara Jensen. Your father, he was involved in something dangerous, something that got a lot of people hurt. Your mom changed your name, your identity, everything to protect you. But someone found out, someone from the past, and now they're coming back. My hands trembled as I clutched my coffee cup. How do you know this? I asked, my voice almost a whisper. Sarah hesitated, then pulled a small photo from her coat pocket. It was a faded picture of me as a child, holding hands with a man whose face was scribbled out in black ink because I was there. She said softly, my parents were part of the same operation. Your father was in a secret intelligence project off the books, deeply buried. They tried to expose something powerful. People didn't want out. Your dad vanished and your mom went into hiding. My parents, they didn't make it. I was placed with a family in Chicago. That's when I met you. It wasn't an accident, Elara. I was told to keep an eye on you. I couldn't breathe, my vision blurred with tears I didn't know were coming. So you were spying on me this whole time? I asked, my voice cracking. Sarah shook her head, eyes pleading. At first, yes, but then I got to know you. You became my best friend. You became my family. I stopped reporting anything. I thought we were safe. Until 3 weeks ago, she slid her flash drive across the table toward me. This has everything: files, photos, names. But be careful, they're watching now. You triggered something. When you opened that storage box, they know you remember. I took the flash drive with shaking hands. What do I do now? Sarah looked around nervously. Go home, act normal. But don't trust anyone, not even me. There are things I haven't told you yet, and I don't know who's listening. I'll find you when it's safe. With that, she stood up and walked away, leaving me in stunned silence. That night, I didn't go home. I checked into a cheap motel outside the city, the kind with flickering lights and cracked walls. Because it felt safer than my own apartment, I plugged in the flash drive using a burner laptop I had from school. Inside were hundreds of files, all marked with dates and codes. It took hours, but I found one labeled Project Echo, Subject DJ. I opened it and the first line made my stomach drop. Subject: Lara Jensen, daughter of Operative Victor Jensen. Subject: relocated under alias following termination of Operation Anvil. High surveillance priority. I scrolled through the rest, my heart pounding. There were surveillance photos of me at school, at the bookstore, even inside my own apartment. Someone had been watching me for years. My phone vibrated then, and I nearly screamed. Unknown number, one message. You've been busy, Eller. My blood ran cold. I shut the laptop, packed my things, and left the motel through the back exit. I couldn't stay in one place. I couldn't trust anyone. My entire life had become a lie, unraveled. The only person who seemed to know the truth was Sarah, and she had disappeared. I remembered what she said. Don't trust anyone, but how could I survive without help? I decided to go back to the only place I hoped had more answers. My childhood home, the one I hadn't seen since I was 5. The address was on one of the documents in the flash drive. It was an old house in a small town in Wisconsin. I drove through the night, headlights cutting through thick fog and snow. When I arrived, the house was boarded up, dust covered, forgotten. I broke in through the back, flashlight in hand, heart racing. Inside, it smelled like time and memories. I found a box under the floorboards with my name, my real name, written on it. Inside were drawings, letters, In a torn journal, the last entry read, "If she ever finds this, she's in danger. They will come for her. She must find the keeper." I had no idea what that meant. But I knew one thing now: this went deeper than I ever imagined. I wasn't just a girl with a hidden past. I was part of something bigger, something buried, something dangerous. I slept in that old house, clutching the journal, afraid of what the morning might bring. But somewhere deep inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Purpose. Whoever the keeper was, I had to find them. I had to finish what my father started. I had to find the truth. Even if it killed. Math house creaked with every breath of wind, as if it were alive and whispering secrets it had held for 2 decades. I didn't sleep much that night. How could I, knowing I had just read a journal entry left behind by a man I barely remembered, but was supposed to call Dad? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flickers, images I wasn't sure were memories or dreams. A man's silhouette at the edge of a lake, a woman's scream in the dark, my own face younger, crying in a car while someone drove frantically. I woke up covered in sweat, the journal still clutched to my chest like it was a lifeline. Morning light peeked through the broken blinds, casting streaks of gold across the dust-covered furniture. I opened the journal again, reading the last line. She must find the keeper. But who was the keeper? A person? A codename? A place? I took pictures of every page with my phone and then carefully tucked the journal into my bag. I couldn't stay her. If anyone was watching my movements, this place wouldn't stay hidden long. I headed out. Before noon, driving toward the nearest town, I found a small public library, one of those old-fashioned ones where the librarian still uses paper checkouts. I slipped into a corner connected to the Wi-Fi and started digging into anything that might relate to Project Echo, Operation Anvil, or the Keeper. But everything came up dry, scrubbed clean, redacted, or completely erased. It was like my father's entire existence had been wiped off the grid. Just as I was about to close my laptop, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize with the subject line, "You're not safe, but you're not alone." My heart skipped. I clicked it open. No message body, just an attachment. A video file labeled 1997_Lara. Against all instinct, I opened it. The video was shaky, clearly handheld. It showed a man, his back to the camera, holding a little girl's hand. My hand. "Lara, look at the camera," a voice said gently. I turned, smiled. It was me, that man. That had to be my father. Suddenly, in the background, you could hear a woman screaming, "They found us. Victor, run." The video cut off with static. I sat there frozen, the blood draining from my face. My father had been on the run, and someone had captured this moment and kept it hidden all these years. I looked around the library, suddenly paranoid. Who sent this? Were they watching me now? I packed my things and left immediately, walking several blocks before taking a cab to a coffee shop where I used another public Wi-Fi to mask my trail. I sent the video to an encrypted cloud and deleted it from my device. Then I remembered something. The last page of the journal had strange initials in the corner. HK. In the video, the same initials were carved on a tree behind us. Maybe it wasn't just a signature. Maybe it was a location. I zoomed into the frame from the video, adjusted the contrast, and enhanced the background. Behind the tree was a wooden sign half covered by vines. I could only make out hill. I did a quick search for locations with hill nearby and found a match: Hallows Keep Hill, a secluded woodland preserve an hour from where I was. My gut told me it wasn't a coincidence. Maybe that's what the keeper meant. I rented a car under a fake name and headed out. The road to Hallows Keep Hill was old, cracked, and barely used. Pines stood like tall sentinels on both sides, their branches clawing at the sky. I parked the car at the trail entrance and continued on foot. The silence of the woods, heavier than anything I had ever felt after nearly an hour of walking. I saw it, the same tree from the video, initials HK freshly carved into the bark, as if someone wanted me to find it. At the base was a small metal box buried beneath leaves. I dug it out and opened it. Inside were old photos, maps, and a note. It was from my father. "If you found this, it means they're coming. You're stronger than they know. Follow the coordinates, trust no one, and find her." Find her? Who? I turned the map over and saw coordinates scribbled on the back. They pointed to a location near rural area outside Minneapolis. I didn't waste time. I drove through the night fueled by adrenaline and fear. When I arrived, it was a cabin run down, secluded, with a wooden porch and smoke rising from the chimney. I approached cautiously, heart hammering. Before I could knock, their door creaked open. An old woman stood there, eyes sharp as glass, hair silver, posture straight. She didn't look surprised to see me. "LR," she said calmly. "I was wondering when you'd come." I was stunned. "Who are you?" She opened the door wider. "I'm the keeper, and you're not ready for what you're about to learn." Inside the cabin was a wall covered in photos, my face at different ages, news clippings, surveillance shots. She poured me tea like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Your father trusted me with the truth. With you, I've watched over you from a distance all these years." My voice trembled. "What truth?" She leaned forward. "Your father didn't just go into hiding. He was part of a rebellion inside the intelligence world, a secret group that uncovered illegal human experimentation funded by corporate and government alliances. They tried to silence him, but he escaped with you. Your mother helped him. They wipe everything to protect you." I felt like I was suffocating. "What were they experimenting on?" She handed me a sealed file. "Children, special children with unique neurological patterns, empaths, hyperintuitives. You were one of them, but your father got you out before they could take you." I stared at the file, not ready to open. "It is my father alive?" Her eyes clouded. "We don't know, but if he is, he's hiding even deeper than you are." Before I could ask anything else, a noise outside startled us. Crunching leaves, heavy boots. She grabbed my arm and pulled me into the back room. "They found us. Go through the tunnel now." She opened a trapdoor beneath a rug. I climbed down. As she slammed it shut, I crawled through darkness, hearing muffled shouts behind me. When I emerged, I was in the woods, far from the cabin. Smoke soon rose into the sky. They burned it. They were erasing every trace again. But I had the file. I had the map. I had my name, Alar Jensen, and now I had a mission. They stole my past. I wasn't going to let them steal my future. Not without a fight. The forest around me felt endless, the trees bending like they were mourning what just happened. As smoke from the cabin twisted up into the sky like a warning flare, I didn't stop running until my lungs burned and my legs went numb. Somewhere behind me, the keeper was gone, maybe taken, maybe worse. But her words echoed in my mind like a prophecy. "You're not ready for what you're about to learn." But I wasn't ready to give up either. I clutched the sealed file she gave me like it was my heartbeat. The sun was setting when I finally stumbled into a clearing, found an abandoned ranger outpost, and locked myself inside. I collapsed onto the wooden floor and finally allowed myself to cry, not just for her or for the fire, but for the girl I used to be, the life I thought I had, the lies that raised me, and the identity they tried to bury. When the sobs finally faded, I opened the file. Inside was a dossier marked confidentially, series subject 07EJ, my name, or rather my designation. The pages inside were clinical, detached, filled with coded language and test results. But the more I read, the more I realized just how deep this all went. According to the documents, I had been part of a government-backed study on children with neurological anomalies, children who scored off the charts in emotional pattern recognition, memory recall, and cognitive empathy. We weren't sick, we weren't broken, we were gifted. But to them, we were specimens. They labeled us a series. And there were more than just me, 7 total. I was subject 07, the last one. The others, their names were redacted, but there were photos, blurry ones, of children in hospital gowns, isolated, alone, eyes hollow like they'd already seen too much. I flipped through page after page until one caught my an internal memo between officials that read, "Subject 07 displays extraordinary empathic recall, unintentional emotional mirroring, noted risk of subject retaining classified memories through observational imprinting, subject to be terminated or extracted by 2003. I stopped breathing. Terminated. That meant they were planning to erase me before my father took me and ran. That's why my life was erased. That's why I had nightmares. They weren't dreams, they were memories my brain stored. Through emotional imprinting, I had witnessed things as a child that I couldn't consciously recall, but my mind had absorbed them like ink on a page. That's what made me dangerous. That's why they wanted me silenced." I snapped the file shut and sat back against the wall, cold seeping into my spine. Something Else in the envelope slid out a worn photograph. It was of a girl about my age, dark holes, piercing green eyes. On the back in my father's handwriting it said, "Find Aver, she knows." I didn't know who Aver was, but something inside me stirred. I recognized her eyes. I had seen them before, once in a hospital memory, once in a childhood dream. She had been there, one of the seven, one of us. I didn't waste time. I took a photo of the note, scanned the file into my cloud, and burned the rest. I couldn't let any of this fall into the wrong hands. By morning, I was back on the road using burner accounts and encrypted forums. I searched everything I could about the E-series using only what I knew: neurological research, closed military experiments in the early 2000s, and the codename Anvil. I got one hit: an old article on a declassified leak mentioning a facility in Montana shut down after ethical violations. No names, but a blurry image showed a nurse wheeling a girl in a wheelchair down a hallway. The girl's face, it was Aver. I traced the image to a private forum of whistleblowers and conspiracy theorists. I posted anonymously, pretending to be a researcher who knew more. Within an hour, I got a message: "You're not the only one looking for Aver. If you want to find her, come along. Coordinates attached." My hands trembled as I copied them down. They pointed to a remote shelter in the Rockies. I knew it was risky. It could be a trap, but I had no choice. If Aver was real and alive and remembered, then maybe I wasn't as alone as I felt. I packed essentials, destroyed every trace of my trail, and set out for Montana. The drive was long, icy, and filled with paranoia. Every car behind me felt suspicious. Every noise made my heart leap. But I pushed through the fear. I arrived at night. The shelter was buried in snow, built into the side of a cliff, the wind howling like it wanted to warn me away. I approached slowly, flashlight in hand, and knocked. For a minute nothing happened. Then the door cracked open. A face peeked out, familiar, older, but unmistakably hers. Aver, her eyes locked on mine. "You're late," she said, stepping aside. "They're already here." Inside, the shelter was dim, cluttered with books, maps, monitors, and old tech. She moved with purpose, pulling down a curtain to reveal a wall covered in photos and documents. "You remember me?" I asked, barely containing my emotion. She nodded. "Not just you, all of us. You're the last one. Alar, the others? They didn't make it." My heart shattered. "Who? What happened?" She pointed to photos, 5 faces, all marked with red X. They were taken out one by one. Accidents, suicides, illness, all staged. I escaped. I've been in hiding for 8 years. "And my father?" I asked, alive. Ava's eyes darkened. "Maybe, but if he is, he's deeper underground than anyone. He was the one who started the burn protocol, leaking files, exposing them. They're hunting him too." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Why me? Why now?" Aver turned to me slowly. "Because your gift is the key. You remember what others forget. You feel what others hide. And the last encrypted location your father sent out before disappearing, it leads to you. Whatever he buried, whatever truth he locked away, it's in you, Alar." Before I could process her words, a piercing alarm rang through the shelter. Ava's face turned white. "They've found us," she whispered. "We have to move now." I grabbed my bag as she opened a hidden tunnel in the floor. For the second time into days, I crawl deep into darkness, but this time I wasn't alone. Aver was with me, and for the first time I felt like maybe, just maybe, we had a chance to fight back. We emerged on the other side of the mountain as helicopters hovered in the distance, red lights blinking like predator eyes. Aver turned to me, breathless. "They think they erased us, but they were wrong. They trained us, they made us, and now we're going to end them." Her words hit like thunder. I nodded, clutching the last photo of my father and the map still etched in my mind. They thought I'd run, but I was done running. It was time to uncover every secret they buried, and then it would be time to burn it all down. The world outside that tunnel felt different, colder, sharper, more alive than ever. As Aver and I emerged under the cloak of darkness, our breaths steaming in the freezing mountain air. The red glow of the helicopters in the distance cast an eerie warning across the valley. We didn't speak, not until we reached a flat ridge high above the tree line where she had stashed an old beat-up Jeep behind camouflage netting and snow-dusted pine branches. She tossed me the keys without looking. "Drive west, take the fire road, we'll talk once we're safe." I didn't argue. The tires crunched over gravel and frozen mud As we cut across the terrain, Ava scanning the rear with binoculars, her silence thicker than the mountain fog after nearly 2 hours of off-road escape. She finally told me where we were going, a safe house left behind by one of the East series, someone named Jonas. Subject: oh, he died 3 years ago, suicide, they said. But Ava knew better, they staged it like the others. She said, but he left something behind, records, proof, maybe even a trace of your father's last location. If it still exists, it'll be there. We arrived near dawn, a cabin buried in snow deep in the Oregon woods, camouflaged by time and nature. Inside it looked and touched since J. Onas's last breath, dust-covered shelves, a cold fireplace, notebooks stacked beside a worn-out armchair as if he'd left mid-thought and never returned. Ava moved like a soldier, scanning for surveillance, checking floorboards, resetting traps. And when she finally gave the all-clear, we sat in silence across from one another, a fire crackling between us. What did they do to us? I asked. What were we part of? Ava stared into the flames for a long time before answering. They didn't want to create monsters. They wanted control, influence, loyalty, obedience. They thought if they could shape the minds of emotionally advanced children, they could manufacture empathy as a weapon, implant suggestions, emotional triggers, trauma-linked obedience. But it went wrong. We didn't break the way they wanted us to. You were the most resilient of all of us, and your father knew it. I could barely breathe. I remembered flashes of bright white room, voices behind glass, questions I did understand, and then blackouts. So many blackouts. I had buried it all until now. Eva handed me a notebook, its pages filled with Jonas's handwriting. He had been tracking all of us, subject 1 through 7. Each name, date of disappearance, final known coordinates. There were symbols, 2 recurring numbers, strange markings, diagrams of neural maps, and overlapping timelines. But one name appeared over and over again. Echo Point. I asked Eva what it meant. She stiffened. Echo Point was where they first tested the convergence theory, where they tried to merge all 7 of us into one emotional stream and mental network to see if we could share experiences, pain, thoughts, reactions. Jonas believed something happened there. They never documented something so dangerous. They buried the location and erased all files. I stared at the symbol beside the name, a circular diagram with 7 dots around the edge, a cracked center. Is it still there? I asked. Does it still exist? Ava nodded. Probably, but if it does, they'll guard it, and if your father left anything behind, it's probably inside. That night we made a plan. We would go to Echo Point not just to find what they buried, but to expose it. We gathered every document, mapped out the coordinates, and packed what little we had. I hadn't felt fear like that in years, not since I was a child. But I also hadn't felt purpose like this ever. Somewhere in this haunted trail of fire and silence, I had found my truth, or at least the road to it. But the next day everything went to hell. We were halfway through Oregon when Eva's burner phone lit up. She answered, silent at first, and then froze. What? I asked. She hung up, her voice cracked. They found her. Who? I asked, my pulse racing. The keeper, she whispered. She's alive, barely. Someone leaked our location. She's at a private medical facility off the books north of Portland. They'll use her to bait us, or worse. I didn't hesitate. We go, we get her out. Ava shook her head. It's a trap, so we spring it. It wasn't heroism, it was guilt. She had saved me. I owed her my life. We drove all night, switching vehicles twice, stitching anything that could trace us. The facility was quiet to quiet. Ava scouted the back while I entered through a broken maintenance tunnel she remembered from an old blueprint. My heart slammed against my ribs the entire way. But what I found inside shook me deeper than anything I had yet seen. The keeper, sedated, wired to machines, her face bruised, her wrists tight. But it wasn't just her. In the room next door there were files, live feeds, test results, photos of me and Ava from the cabin. And worse, a new list, series, reactivation candidates. 7 names crossed out, all except one, mine. They weren't hunting me to kill me, they wanted to start again. I unplugged her machines, gently woke her, and whispered, it's me, LR, I'm here. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. It's all still there, she muttered. In the lake, where it ended, where it began. Then she collapsed. The alarms blared. Ava burst and grabbed my arm. We've got to go now. We carried her out through smoke and chaos. The fire we lit behind us Swallowing their precious secrets, we drove through the night again, stopping only when the keeper started breathing normally. She was still weak, but alive. She had told us everything we needed. The Lake Echo Point wasn't a lab, it was a location. A facility built beneath a lake in Washington state, deep enough to hide whatever they created. And now, we were going there for my father, for the others, for the girl they tried to erase, and for the truth that could burn their entire empire to the ground. The road to Echo Point was unlike anything we had driven before, twisting through fog-soaked valleys and dense rain-drenched evergreens that lined the Washington coastline. Like silent witnesses to a forgotten history, Ava and I said little during the drive. The keeper slept in the back seat, her breathing shallow, her hands twitching every so often like she was trapped in memories we couldn't see. Every mile brought us closer to the place where it all began, and possibly where it all had to end. The lake, Coldwater Lake, wasn't on any recent maps. The original shoreline had shifted after a rockslide years ago, and what remained was more rumor than fact. Local stories described the area as cursed, plagued by strange animal behavior and radio interference. But we knew better. It wasn't cursed, it was buried, hidden, weaponized, and somehow I had been part of its creation. We arrived just after midnight, parking the Jeep far from view and continuing on foot. The moon was full, casting a pale glow across the still waters of the lake. The silence was suffocating. Ava led us down a moss-covered trail that eventually stopped at a rusted steel hatch embedded in the rocks near the shoreline. "This is it," she said. They called it Site Zero. Everything that happened to us started here. The hatch was locked with an old biometric scanner, now inactive, corroded with time. Ava bypassed it with wires and an old hacking tool, her fingers moving like muscle memory. The lock clicked, the hatch opened, a staircase spiraled into darkness, the air stale and heavy with mold and secrets. I took the first step down, flashlight in hand, heart pounding in my throat. The deeper we went, the more the temperature dropped, until we reached a reinforced steel door marked with faded lettering, Project Echo, restricted entry. Level 1A. The door groaned open, revealing a hallway frozen in time. Lights flickered weakly, powered by a generator somewhere below, and security cameras, long inactive, hung from the ceiling like blind eyes. The rooms we passed were filled with old equipment, dusty monitors, child-sized gurneys, and faded murals painted by tiny hands. I saw a name scribbled on the wall in crayon. Ava, she stopped, frozen. "I remember this," she whispered. "I used to sit right there. They gave us puzzles to solve. Monitors would track our brain activity while they asked us how the pictures made us feel." I felt sick. Every step deeper into the facility felt like walking through a graveyard of stolen childhoods. Then we reached the main chamber. It was massive, circular, with 7 glass pods lining the wall like forgotten sarcophagi. Each one was labeled with a code, EO1 through EO7. Only one was shattered. "Mine. This is where they linked us," Ava said. "They called it the Convergence Room. Said it was a way to make us emotionally uniform, to share thoughts, pain, fear, hope. It was supposed to make us obedient." I stepped forward, heart hammering as I reached the last intact pod. A console nearby hummed weakly. I wiped off the dust and hit a single glowing button. Access memory archive. A holographic interface burst to life. Static. Then a video. My father appeared. He looked younger, worn out, but determined. "If you're watching this," he said, "you've made it back. I don't know how much you remember, Alara, but I never stopped protecting you. What they were doing here, what they did to you, you and the others, it wasn't science, it was control, emotional engineering at the deepest level. They wanted soldiers who could predict enemy thought, feel their intentions, adapt emotionally in real time. But it broke the children. All of them except you." The screen flickered. "You had something they didn't expect. Resistance, emotional immunity. You absorbed, but didn't collapse. That's why they kept pushing. That's why I took you. They were planning a second phase, Echo Prime. A neural network using children like you as living hubs. If they ever restart it, the world will change, not with missiles, but with minds, thoughts, emotions. War would no longer need weapons, just manipulation." My legs buckled. Ava caught me. The next file loaded automatically. Schematics, locations, archived footage of experiments, and a countdown timer. 17 years ago, my father initiated a failsafe, one that would flood the facility using the lake above if ever reactivated. You can trigger it, his voice continued, but only if you're sure. Once this place is gone, the data vanishes. With it, every trace, every answer, even your link to me. I stared at the console. A single command glowed red. Initiate purge sequence. I couldn't breathe. This place had ruined lives, but it also held every truth I had ever chased. My memories, my identity, maybe even the final clue to where he was. If you purge this place, Ava said softly, we walk away free, but we walk away with questions we'll never answer. Are you ready for that? I didn't know. I thought of Sarah, of the keeper of the children who never got the chance to grow up. I thought of the pain etched into Ava's face and the way my father had looked at the camera like he still believed in me. Maybe I didn't need more answers. Maybe I just needed to stop the pain from ever starting again. I pressed the command. A soft alarm echoed through the chamber. Red lights flashed. Purge sequence initiated. Evacuate immediately, Ava. And I ran through the hallway up the spiral stairs, dragging the keeper behind us. The ground vibrated. Water roared through underground pipes, filling the corridors below with the weight of a lake's worth of silence. We made it to the surface as the hatch blew open. Behind us, steam and water bursting out like a final exhale from a dead memory. The lake swallowed it all. Everything. We stood on the shore, sipped, breathless and staring at the ripples that spread slowly across the surface. Ava looked at me. It's over. I shook my head. No, it's just beginning. I didn't know what would come next. Maybe they'd come for us again. Maybe there were more sights, more truths buried in files we'd never find. But they know low anger owned us. We were no longer experiments. We were survivors. And I would make sure the world knew. I turned to Ava and the keeper. We tell our story. We show the world. We burn the mask they've worn for decades. The keeper smiled faintly. Your father would be proud. For the first time I believed it, and for the first time in my life, I felt free. It had been 6 weeks since the lake swallowed the last evidence of Project Echo. 6 weeks since I pressed that button and wiped out the ghosts that had haunted my life since childhood. But what followed wasn't silence, it was fire. We didn't vanish, we didn't run, we didn't let them bury it all again. Instead, we began to speak. Hava and I went dark at first, bouncing between locations, working off encrypted networks using burner hardware and false identities. But every night we worked. The keeper, though fragile, still remembered. She guided us as we pieced together the fragments Jonas left behind. And we built a timeline of events that stretched back over to decades. Whistleblowers, declassified documents, archived footage, audio from past experiments. And then our story. Ava's mind, the truths they never thought would be told. When it was ready, we released it all, a 30-minute video edited to perfection, narrated by my voice. I spoke directly into the camera. No effects, no blurs, no distortions. I gave them my real name, Lara Jensen. I told the world everything: the program, the children, the pain, the manipulation. I included footage of the underground facility, scans of files, faces of the Lost series. And at the end, I looked into that lens with more resolve than I'd ever known and said, we were not born to be their experiments. We were born to be human, and we were nearly erased for it, but not anymore. You need to know what they've done, because if they did it to us, they can do it again. We posted it everywhere, encrypted first, then on darknet forums, and finally publicly Reddit, YouTube. Bex leaked to journalists, activists, groups, and international watchdogs. And it caught fire within 48 hours. It had 18 million views. By the end of the week, it was trending on every platform, translated into multiple languages, dissected on news panels, and questioned by politicians and defense agencies who suddenly couldn't comment on ongoing investigations. They couldn't stop it. We had hard evidence, proof of names, funding chains, facility blueprints, and a list of every experiment conducted on minors. The people demanded justice. They called it the Echo Expose, and I became the face of it, not by choice, but by necessity. I wasn't just a voice anymore. I was a reckoning. Of course, there was pushback, denials, fake articles calling me mentally unstable, photoshopped documents claiming it was fiction. But truth, when shown in raw, bleeding clarity, has a power that propaganda can't erase. Within weeks, retired agents came forward. Former facility workers leaked supporting evidence. Lawsuits began. Hearings followed. The words Project Echo were entered into public record. But it wasn't all victory. 3 days after the video, When viral Sarah was found her body washed ashore on the Hudson River. They called it suicide, but I knew better. She had saved my life. Fiend. Now, they had taken her so buried her quietly. Only a few of us there. The keeper myself, I read something I wrote by her grave. You were my sister. Before I knew who I was, you gave me truth. When the world gave me lease, you were the voice in the dark, and now I will be your seat. Will not let them silence you ever. After that I disappeared again, not to hide, but to help keep her. Returned to a quiet cabin in Vermont. Ava left for Europe to meet with others tracking similar projects. We weren't the only ones. We discovered other countries, other names, other facilities. The war wasn't over, but the fire had started. As for me, I kept moving. Sometimes I spoke under aliases at private security conferences. Sometimes I sent anonymous drops to journalists. Still chasing leads, but mostly I just lived for the first time. I let myself be. No cameras watching, no eyes tracking, no mirrors showing me. A stranger, just me. And one day, sitting under the sky in a place no one could find, I opened the last message. My father had left me hidden inside a separate partition of the drive, encrypted under the nickname he used to call me Little Lyndon. It was a video. Looked older, worn, his beard grayer, but his eyes, those eyes were still full of vital view. Racing this, it means you chose truth. You did what I can know. Am not where I can be found, and maybe I never will be again, but you don't need to find me to finish the sigh. You are my legacy. You are what they couldn't break. You are the sound and the silence. You are the echo. Keep going always. I watched it 3 times, then I let the wind carry my tears away. Thank you for watching my video. If you made it this far, if your heart raced, your breath caught, or your fists clenched at any point, then this story wasn't just mine, it became yours too. Cows, this isn't just a thriller, it's a truth wrapped in fiction, and maybe, just maybe, it's a warning. If it moved you, shook you, or made you question everything, subscribe, like, and share this story. Let it be heard, let others know. Let no child ever be raised in shadows again. This story is written and edited by Dark Life Side Diaries.